All right, music fans, welcome. Harmless Dave here, talking about real music in real time for real people just like you and just like me. So, if you haven't noticed, rock and roll and the industry itself, I think, is kind of on life support because there's nothing waiting in the wings to take over for the stuff that is fading and fading quickly. Bands with like one original member, I think of Steely Dan, I think of the Eagles, and a lot of other bands that are still roaming around, like the Doobie Brothers, who are really looking a little long in the tooth these days, although still, I think, sounding good enough to be out there on tour. But you're really not getting the experience that you got even 10 or 15 years ago. I mean, things have gone downhill quickly, and now you have this never-ending pandemic. And no matter how much you want to challenge me on this, it was what, 2 weeks to flatten the curve? 2 weeks. And we're 18 months, 19 months into this, and it doesn't show any signs of slowing down or ending. And then you've got people like Eric Clapton and Van Morrison out there trying to actually rekindle the rebellious spirit in the music industry. And there is none. There is none. Everybody just wants to go along with the plan, whatever that plan is. And no matter how detrimental that plan is to the future of this genre. But even more importantly, or coincidentally, I'll say it that way, the music industry really was set up to kind of go away, for quite some time, because the level of talent which has, come next is so unremarkable that nobody is really going to remember the music of the last 20 years in a way that people have clung to their favorite music, for maybe the prior 50 years. You got to go back to like the 1950s. Even people in the big band era were still excited about the music they grew up listening to. In fact, that was the music that helped people cope with World War II and a lot of the things that were happening during that time frame. And, you look at the 50s, very distinctive decade, the 60s, even more so. The 70s had a thing for sure, and the 80s. We get to the 90s, and those things tend to go away. People will remember grunge music as it briefly took over the world and then quickly faded away. And post-grunge, we've really had no theme, no continuity, unless you're into hip-hop and electronic music. None of it, to me, is compelling or interesting. And I don't know, I guess it's who can top each other by using, crappy technology to make, a melody that sticks with, teenage girls. I mean, that's kind of what this is about at this point. And really nobody came along to replace those great artists we grew up listening to. And yes, there are, people that you can find, you can Google, you can scour the internet. I was doing this 3 or 4 years ago, and nobody really cared. And I still do it. And every so often I'll post something that's new and people will be like, okay, yeah, whatever. But if you don't have a support system in place, which would be radio, right? No matter how much people want to kind of throw cold water on radio and say, well, there's Spotify and YouTube and Apple Music and all these different platforms. It's not the same as radio. It's you jump in your car and it's convenient. You hit a button or it's already playing when you get in there, and they're playing the same songs, from 40 years ago over and over again. And they've pared down their playlist so much, and it's so repetitive, and it's so boring, and it's so predictable that, why would you just cling to just those things? I mean, many of us grew up with bands that are no longer played or songs that are no longer played. So we feel as though, wow, I guess that music wasn't important enough for these people to continue programming it, because they don't, and they focus test and nope, people don't like that song. No, what they're focus testing now is a song from the past that appeals to somebody who's a lot younger than you and I. So a 25-year-old will be like, okay, yeah, that Don't Stop Believing is such a good song. And you're like, it is, but that band had a catalog that would choke a horse, but nobody really seems to want to expand on anyone's horizons. They just want to force feed you that guaranteed thing that you're going to cling to if you're younger. But being as the industry didn't create any rock bands or didn't encourage rock bands from either America or other places in the world, there's probably, I don't know, thousands of rock bands that are out there that are making original music that isn't breaking through anywhere. And of course, this also speaks to the entire collapse of the music, the way it's sold. And, you know, if you want something now, you stream it and you pay $9.95 a month and you stream it unlimited. And there are a lot of cheapskates, including yours truly, who think of that and they go, wow, what a great deal. I don't have to buy this. I don't have to own it. I can just stream it and it'll always be there unless they remove it from the platform, which they won't because they want to get their $9.95 a month. And the artists don't get but pennies for streams unless your streams are going into the millions and billions. And there are a few streams that will go into the billions, and an artist will still make pennies on the dollar, but it would be more significant because it's such a high number of plays. At that point, they don't really care, you know, and they're still getting some pretty good revenue. But for upstarts, for people that want to upload their music and they want to show folks their wares, and, you know, as much as it's easier, it's like me uploading a video to this platform rather than having to apply for a job at a TV network. I can just upload this and hope that you'll like it, right? It's much harder for music artists because, again, people are still inclined to jump in their car and take a ride, and they want some companion music. And that's not how we do it these days. And people now pay for things that they used to get for free, like satellite radio, which is supposed to be far more sophisticated and larger playlists. But I've listened to some of it and it's better than my local radio station, but it's not so much better that I'm willing to pay for it. The biggest problem, though, is the fact there's nothing that is coming up that's going to replace the bands that you grew up listening to. There's nothing waiting in the wings to say when REO Speedwagon retires, not that there needs to be a band specifically to replace their sound, but there's nobody coming up that you're excited about because, number one, you don't know about it. And number two, no one's going to play it. No one's going to expose you to it. The greatest thing about the old top 40 charts and the old mainstream rock radio charts was that you were getting new stuff mingled with the stuff that you were familiar with prior. So it was a way to kind of break in the new material. And yeah, top 40 is still around. It's horrendous. Mainstream rock radio is still around. It's, for the most part, horrendous. Like I say, there are like two bands, Greta Van Fleet, Dirty Honey, AC/DC. When they come out with an album, they get some exposure for a few weeks, and then they put those new songs away. They won't play, you know, the latest or the last album. They'll just go back to the old stuff, Highway to Hell, Back in Black, and it's boring as crap. It's just boring. I mean, yeah, those are good songs and they deserve to be played, but you need to have a mix of stuff where you go, oh, wow, wonder what that was. I mean, I'm still excited like it's Christmas morning when I hear something that I haven't heard before. And it's like, wow, there are still note combinations out there that I haven't heard that are really good. There are still people being creative and carrying on the tradition that again started in the 1950s and kind of ended. Gene Simmons says around 1988. I disagree. I would say about 91, 92. And again, my line of demarcation is the release of the album Nevermind by Nirvana, which I think was September of 91. And then it had to take, hold, and then everyone else joined in, and then everything else around it kind of went away or, sputtered, tried, these bands that had come out in the late 80s and early 90s, bands like Firehouse and Mr. Big. It's like really talented. And then, just turn off the spigot. Nope, sorry, you guys are done. And then that was short-lived. And what replaced that was darker and even less intelligible. And it hasn't, recovered since. So the industry itself, between what's happening with the concert industry and the never-ending plague, the never-ending, gee, we don't know if we're going to get back to normal. Gee, if you want to go to a concert, you're going to have to do all these things. Plus, you're going to have to spend a lot of money. People are like, you know what? It's not worth it. And then you've got the radio business, which is a joke. And you've got, 3 or 4 media companies really owning all the radio stations, and everything revolves around a theme that comes down from corporate and then is basically farmed out to all these radio stations. Nobody has any personality anymore. DJs, very few of them. I know there are these stupid morning shows where all they do is talk, and they've been doing that for like 25, 30 years at least. And the morning shows in the old days, yeah, they used to be fun, but there was a music element, a serious music element. And then there was like news and information, which now it's just mindless gossip and entertainment gossip and celebrity gossip. Ooh, wow. I guess people are interested in it though, because if they weren't, it wouldn't have survived this long. But it really does appeal to, I think, the lowest common denominator. And it's not about the music. I'd rather get a quick news or traffic update and boom, right back into music. 45 minutes nonstop. I mean, they never did that, but they do it after like 9 a.m. and they'll tell you, it's the whatever, it's the commercial free, office, whatever for an hour. And it's just like, okay, great. But people are, they're out of their cars and they probably can't listen in the office, but it's just weird what's happened, folks. And I hate to be all doom and gloom, but it's just been made worse by the never ending pandemic. And I don't know when that ends because it's never ending. And if it does end, people will still have the fear and they'll still worry about things that they didn't used to worry about, because they've been told now for a long time that this is their new normal and they better get with the program or they won't be able to function in society. So in any event, that's my depressing video on the topic. If you'd like to subscribe to the channel, please do so. Don't forget Patreon for $1 a month. Revenue is stagnating, even though views are up and subscribers obviously up. So it always gets a little disconcerting when your content is doing pretty well, but yet things are going in the opposite direction financially. So if you can help on Patreon for $1 a month, that would be great. It's kind of like a hedge against what I think is going to hit everyone eventually. And also just to watch the videos and put them on repeat play and put them in an endless loop. It's a lot of videos. So it'd be entertaining. Even if you're not in the room, you can just, anyway, thanks for watching and I will see you soon.